Thanks for coming back. Today we're going to talk about the major scale. And not only just the major scale, we're going to use this major scale to relate all other scales to. And you'll see it's going to become very easy to relate all kinds of scales, minors, dominant scales, the several different kinds of modes, Phrygian, Mixolydian, Lydian modes, all that stuff, all kind of technical. I hate those words because most people just think you're trying to sound smart. So what I'm going to do is boil it down real simple. And the natural major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, is scale number 1. It's real simple, scale number 1. And it sounds like this in G. Okay, so that is the natural major scale. And in that scale, the natural major scale, there are 7 steps, and then the scale repeats itself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8. 8 is really just starting over again. That's a G, and that's the same as 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8. So there's 7 steps to a major scale. In between each one of those steps is an interval. Okay, it takes 2 notes to make an interval. So from step 1 to step 2, there's 1 extra interval. So that's actually 2 half steps. So if I played step 1 and put the half step in between step 2, you would hear this. Okay, so step 1, step 2. So that's 2 half steps. So we're going to call that E2. The distance between step 1 and step 2 is E2. It means 2 equal intervals or 2 half steps. All right. The formula of intervals for a major scale is really simple. It's 2 plus 2 plus 1. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. And I'm going to show you on the low E string what I'm talking about. Between the first step and the second step of the scale that's the interval of E2, 2 half steps, okay? Between the second step of the scale and the third step of the scale, there is a half step, and so we call it E2 also. So there's 2 half steps between those notes. So the first part of our formula is E2, E2, and then E1. So here we go, E2, E2, and then E1. Okay, between the third step of the scale and the fourth step of the scale, there is 1 equal interval, 1 half step. Between the fourth and the fifth step of the scale, there are 2 half steps, so it's E2. Between the fifth step of the scale and the 6th step of the scale, there is 2 half steps. And between the 6th step and the 7th, there is 2 half steps. And then back to the G, between the 7th step and the high G is 1. So that's where we get the formula E2, E2, E1, E2, 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 E1. And the reason why you need to know that formula is because wherever you are on the guitar, if you know that formula, you can play a major scale. You don't have to memorize every single note because you'll understand the distances between them. And eventually you should memorize the notes too. But for example, if I'm in the key of A flat and you want to know what the 6th step of the scale is, you might not know it's an F. Or you might not know the 7th step is a G. Or if I say, if I'm in the key of B, the 6th step of the scale is a G sharp. I mean, that's a lot of memorization to do. But if you know the formula for a major scale is 2 plus 2 plus 1, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1, and you know where a B note is, you can play the scale. Because you know the formula, you know what the relationship of the notes, of the scale steps are. So that's what we're trying to teach you, to think in terms of distances between notes. And eventually what this will do, this will free you up to play styles. You'll be able to hear, for example, Baroque music, Bach type music, used a certain kind of intervals and resolutions, and those will become more obvious once we understand how the distance between two notes played scale-wise can work. For example, if I was to play a G major scale, Baroque intervals are a lot of times thirds and sixths and tenths. Now those you won't understand what that is, but if I'm thinking in terms of scale, a third is if I play the first note and the third note of a G scale together, I get this. Where did that note come from? Playing those notes together. If I play the scale in thirds, now I get this. So if I want to play the scale in tenths, which is the 10th note of the scale, which would be the second octave, because the scales, as you know, only have 7 steps, right? So I'd have to count 10. How high does that take me? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'm going to start here and play the scale starting on scale 1 and 10. Now I get so this interval is simply 10 scale steps apart. Okay? And pretty soon you're going to learn how to play the scale, which means close the scale holding these two notes. So it would sound like this. If I was going to use Baroque music, or I wanted to ad-lib or just improvise using those intervals and just the G scale, I might do something like this. That's all just the major scale. We haven't put any sort of embellishments in there, just the major scale. It's going to be our base, and once again, the formula for a major scale is 2 plus 2 plus 1. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 is the formula. There are 7 steps. If you want to think in terms of scale intervals, then scale intervals, if you were to play 1, 1, 5, that would mean the first step of the scale and the 5th step of the scale, you play them together. That's 5. That's a distance, scale step distance between two notes, but it's actually 7 half steps. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so it's 5 scale steps, but 7 equal building blocks. So this is normally referred to in traditional music as a 5th. and it's actually 7 equal building blocks between those 2 notes. So I think of it as E7. So because if I think of it as E7, it's just a distance between 2 notes. I'm not relating to any scale. It's just, that's an interval to me. And it's much easier to think in terms of just the interval, because if I have to think in terms of scale steps, then I have to know the whole scale and all that sort of stuff. So we're a little ahead of ourselves, but I want you to understand that thinking in terms of intervals is really where we want to start. And your lesson today is the natural major scale. We call it scale 1. Traditionalists call it the Ionian scale. We are keeping it simple. It's scale 1. The formula is 2 plus 2 plus 1, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. And there's 7 scale steps. Okay, and then it starts over. So to recap also, I want you to know it's very important to learn to play these scales horizontally on the neck and vertically. All right, so horizontally and vertically. It'll help you learn early on how to switch over. This is how cellists, violinists, violists learn how to play their instruments, because they don't have frets like guitar has. They got to do it by ear and just distance of notes. They feel the distance of the notes. So you're actually taking a really broad musical approach. It's going to take a little time, but in the end you'll move much faster. This is exponential type thinking on guitar, which means it starts off like this and goes like that. So that's really where you want to be. And once you understand the intervals on the guitar, you will be able to keep up with anybody. All right, so thank you very much. Make sure you write questions, send them in. We'll answer as many questions as we can get to. And certainly if we get a lot of questions on the same subject, we'll probably do a lesson on that subject. But today's lesson is the natural major scale, scale number 1. We were playing it in G. And I hope you have fun and find some interesting new sounds. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy guitar schedules to listen. All right, bye.